Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Michelle Manuel. If I haven't had a chance to meet you already, hey, I'm glad we're meeting here online. Since we are not able to meet physically at the church, some of us on the pastoral team have decided to kind of do daily devotionals and daily check ins. It's just kind of a reset from us pastors. Each day we'll be posting that at 8 a.m. so you can check out our social media channels and our website for that content. Today I am here outside, when we are kind of being forced to isolate, self quarantine, do that social distancing thing. I have seen so many people outside, and I am outside as well, enjoying my morning cup of coffee and doing this little devotional here. So, I especially have been thinking about loneliness and how people are already feeling isolated. We live in a time where people are hyper connected. We can, chat with people online, we can text, we can call. And yet, there's this thing that has sprung up among us in the last probably 8 years that researchers are now calling the loneliness epidemic. And I have especially wondered how this new, this new time that we find ourselves in, how that is going to be impacting this loneliness epidemic and those of us who end up feeling lonely at a higher rate than any other time in history, recorded history. Did you know that loneliness and social isolation can be a huge negative impact on our health? In fact, researchers have said that feeling a consistent amount of loneliness for a prolonged amount of time can lead to so much stress that it's as if we would have smoked 15 cigarettes a day. It has that type of impact on our mortality and our projected lifespan. And so loneliness is not something that we need to play around with. It's not something we need to ignore or pretend that we're not feeling. So this morning I want to first say to you, if you feel lonely, please reach out to us at the church. Please call us. There's someone answering the phones. There's people who will answer your emails. I'd love to talk to you on the phone. Please don't hesitate to reach out. But also, I want to say that that we should acknowledge our loneliness and then do something about it. What I find most comforting in this time, that we can't physically meet in the church or physically meet with one another, but we can meet the presence of God wherever we are. I'm looking to the book of Exodus, chapter 33, verses 7 through 11. And this was, after the Israelites had come out of slavery and captivity, after they had wandered in the wilderness and all of this. Moses is their priest and their leader that God has appointed, and this comes right after they have received all these kind of weird, very oddly specific instructions on how to build the temple and the worship space and the place in which the presence of God will reside. And so here in chapter 33, it says this is about the tent of meeting. And it says, "Now Moses used to take the tent and pitch it outside the camp, far off from the camp. He called it the tent of meeting. And everyone who sought the Lord would go out to the tent of meeting, which was outside the camp. And whenever Moses went out to the tent, all the people would rise and stand, each of them, at the entrance of their tents and watch Moses until he had gone into the tent. When Moses entered the tent, the pillar of cloud would descend and stand at the entrance of the tent, and the Lord would speak with Moses. When all the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance of the tent, all the people would rise and bow down, all of them at the entrance of their tent. Thus, the Lord used to speak to Moses face to face, as one speaks to a friend. And then he would return to the camp. But his young assistant, Joshua, son of Nun, would not leave the tent." That verse there, verse 11, jumped right out at me. The Lord used to speak to Moses face to face as one speaks to a friend. In this tent, Moses used to go and meet with the presence of God. He used to meet face to face, and God would speak to him as if he were a friend. Now, this was in the Holy of Holy Places. This was behind that veil, and only one person who was cleansed and who did all the rituals could enter that tent, and God's presence would come to them and speak to them as a friend. And this is significant for us today because as people, we are a people of the resurrection. And when Christ took his final breath, in Matthew it tells us that the veil was torn. And it's that veil that separates the church, the holy place, from the Holy of Holies, where God's Spirit would reside. That veil is torn. And so God's Spirit and God's presence is with us anywhere we go and anywhere we seek God. And I find great comfort in that in this time, that we can meet with God wherever we seek God. And so I encourage you in these next weeks or so to meet with God. Maybe you've never felt the presence of God before. Try an experiment. Find a quiet place. Get away from all the hyper connectivity, the online hustle and bustle, the news. Get away for a minute and ask God to speak to you. Seek the presence of God. See what happens, because we have access to God anywhere we are now. And I want to leave you with the challenge to seek the presence of God, yes, alone in your quiet time, through the reading of Scripture, through praying, through entering those spiritual disciplines and contemplative practices. But I also challenge you to seek the presence of God in others. I want to give you a charge. Make 2 phone calls a day. That's all. 2 phone calls to seek the presence of God in others. I want you to call a person who is not in your current generation, so someone who's maybe older or younger than you are, and have a conversation with them. See how they're doing. Ask them how they're handling all of this. Ask them what's going on in their life, what's on pause for them right now. And the second phone call I want you to make is to someone you don't know very well. Maybe it's a neighbor down the street, but y'all exchanged numbers when moving in. Maybe it's a long-lost friend. Maybe it's someone you know from church and Sunday school, and you've always wanted an excuse to get to know them better. Or maybe it's just a stranger that you somehow met somewhere along the way. Connect. Seek the presence of God in others. Seek the presence of God amidst all of this, in the stillness, in the loneliness, in all that you're experiencing. Friends, my prayer for you today is that the loneliness epidemic would be something of the past, that it wouldn't be exacerbated by our current social distancing, but that the presence of God would meet you right where you are. God bless you.